YouTube friends. This is the story of the night witches who caused terror among the Nazis, night bombings and unpowered flights. They were formed out of necessity following Hitler's advance into the territory of the Soviet Union. Please support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. The Nazis and the night witches. The May wind on the steppes of Kursk did not blow, cut like a rusty scalpel. At 800 meters high, the cold was not a thermal sensation. It was a physical enemy, a parasite that devoured the heat from the bones and numbed Nadezhda Popova's fingers. Her hands, wrapped in worn leather gloves, gripped the control stick of her Polikarpov Potu with the rigidity of a corpse. Beside her, the wood and canvas structure creaked under the air pressure. The Potu was an anachronism of balsa wood and taut fabric, a fragile skeleton that the men of the Red Army contemptuously called sewing machines or wooden hangers. But for the Wehrmacht soldiers trembling in the trenches, that sound was the prelude to the grave. "Engine off," Nadezhda ordered. Her voice sounded dry, cracked by the frost forming on her scarf. The navigator nodded and cut the ignition. The roar of the Shvetsov engine died out in a death rattle of smoke. The resulting silence was absolute, terrifying. In that instant, the biplane ceased to be an airplane and became a ghost glider. The only remaining sound was the hiss of the wind brushing against the wide tensioners of the wings, a rhythmic whistling reminiscent of a broom sweeping a stone floor. Naktheksen. The night witches had arrived, and their broom was the wind itself. It was 30 seconds of freefall. 30 seconds where gravity was their only propulsion and stealth their only armor. Below, the German camp rested under a false sense of security, protected by anti-aircraft batteries that could not detect a plane emitting neither heat nor noise. Nadezhda felt the weight of the 4 bombs under her wings. They were crude iron artifacts, but they represented the only thing separating her home from total annihilation. The navigator, her eyes bloodshot after 18 hours without sleep, gave the signal with a tense gesture. A metallic click. The bombs released, cutting through the black air. The impact was a volcano of fire that tore through the darkness, revealing for a millisecond the skeletal silhouette of the biplane. Hell broke loose. Ignition. Damn it, Nadezhda, ignite. The navigator shouted as German tracers began to sow the sky with threads of crimson and green fire. The engine coughed, spat a cloud of soot, and finally roared, just as a machine gun burst splintered the spar of the right wing. Nadezhda veered with a violence that nearly threw her out of the open cockpit. They carried no parachutes. The extra weight meant fewer bombs. If the plane burned, they would burn with it, becoming meteors of canvas and flesh over the Russian mud. Upon landing at their improvised Besa mudfield hidden behind a birch forest, there were no cheers, only the smell of octane gasoline and the stone face of Marina Ryskova. The Queen of the Skies waited for them, standing up, her uniform impeccable. Ryskova did not accept tears. She knew that if she allowed a single crack of sentimentality to open, the entire regiment would crumble. In the tent, the atmosphere was a mix of sanctuary and morgue. Tatiana Baramzina mended a uniform with the precision of a surgeon, but her eyes were fixed on nothingness. An hour ago, she had seen her best friend become a human pyre after being hit by a searchlight. Irina Sabrova, her fingers black with grease, applied a drop of floral perfume to her neck, so that the last smell remaining on my body isn't fear or burnt canvas, she murmured as the horizon thundered again. Suddenly, the roar of a Messerschmitt Bf 109 engine tore through the air over the camp, a surprise attack. The darkness, which had always been their ally, turned traitor under the enemy flares. An explosion threw Nadezhda to the ground. The taste of metal, gunpowder, and earth filled her mouth. Through the smoke, she saw Tatiana running toward a Potu that had not yet unloaded its ammunition. The Nazi fire was relentless, a rain of lead seeking to erase those women who had dared to defy the laws of war and biology. Tatiana didn't make it. A burst nearly cut her in half. Her body fell onto the mud of Mother Russia, her coat filled with the dry branches she used to tuck under her clothes not to let her soul freeze. Nadezhda stood up, rage burning hotter than the Kursk cold. There was no time for mourning. In this regiment, mourning was a luxury paid for with defeat. She looked around. The mechanics, 17-year-old girls with broken nails and faces black with soot, were already loading another plane under machine gun fire. That night, Nadezhda climbed back into her cockpit. The plane had 42 bullet holes. The canvas hung in tatters like the skin of a leper, and the engine emitted an agonizing moan, but it still flew. As she rose for the 11th time toward the black hell, Nadezhda looked back. The base was a chaos of fire, but in the air there was only them. They were the witches, daughters of peasants, medical students, librarians who had traded poems for bombing charts. She knew history would try to erase them, that the same generals using them as cannon fodder today would ignore them in the victory parades tomorrow. But as the hiss of her wings cut the air above the invaders' heads, Nadezhda smiled with a dark ferocity. "Next target," she whispered into the vastness of the night. "Let them hear us before they die."